Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Many of you already know me. I'm Aryo. I put up this event. This is going to be kind of a last-minute presentation where I'm talking about the audio in a game that I made recently. This game is called Ondaadad, and it is about it's an educational game about you being a boy in the First Nation in Ontario in the 1700s, doing various tasks, and then going to European traders. And I wanted to use this to talk about meta sounds and the Soundscape plugin and how I've been using them. So first thing, for the whenever there's text writing on the screen, I wanted to create this sound. Here's what it sounds like. What I did for this, I use a traditional writing method that that a bunch of Ojibwe nations would use, which is they would write on the back side of birch bark. So I literally just went to the forest, found a birch tree where the bark was falling off, and then on the underside of it, I would carve into it with a stylus. What I want to show here, something that's different about meta sounds compared to blueprints is that it uses triggers and not executions. And what that means is in blueprints, one node will trigger the next node, which will trigger the next node, and you can just drag it back and create a loop. And it would just each trigger one after another. You cannot do that in meta sounds because they are triggers, which means it all just kind of happens at the same time. If you try to loop it, and here I'll show you, it won't let you. It says it'll cause a loop. Because it all happens at the same time, you can't just have an infinite number of nodes happening all at once. So, here's the solution to that. If I can figure out how to move around, there we go. There's this. You can make a trigger variable. So whenever this variable is triggered, you can have stuff trigger out of this. But still, I cannot plug this in because it causes a loop. It triggers at the same time as that input at the far right. So what do? The way the trigger works, it triggers every 10 milliseconds, same as most other variable types except for audio, which triggers 48,000 times per second. It happens, so triggers update every 10 seconds. So what you can do is use this, a delayed trigger. So this says, trigger this on the following buffer after that input trigger on the far right was triggered. So as soon as it does all of this, 10 milliseconds later, it'll do all of this again, and it'll just keep going until I trigger this finish input. And so here's how that sounds. So imagine you don't need to imagine, let me actually just show you an actual example in the game. By the way, like half of the dev team for this game is in this room. And here's that sound right here. And when the text stops typing, it stops. And that's it. The next thing I wanted to talk about was a neat little plugin. I think it was added into Unreal last year. Is soundscapes. As the name implies, I use this for the ambiance of the game. One neat thing that we didn't need to use for our project, but that you can use for here, is you have these palettes. That's what SP stands for, soundscape palettes. Imagine you have this forest area with a list of forest-related sounds that would spawn, but then you would leave the area completely, you'll go into a city, you can transition into like another palette where it has all the city sounds. But in this game, we just have the one palette, it's just forest sounds. And let me show you how this works. In this case, it's pretty simple. 4 soundscape colors, going by, following the metaphor. For example, the wind sound, pretty simple. I literally just ask it to, it doesn't matter where it spawns, I just made sure it has a maximum spawn radius so it doesn't spawn super far, but it doesn't matter. There's no attenuation, it doesn't get quieter the further away it is. It's just always the same constant volume, regardless of where you are. It just plays once and it loops forever, that's it. And nothing special about that, but it becomes interesting when you look at something like the village birds. So the village birds spawn at a specific location, and it has attenuation, so if it's further away it's going to be quieter. And whoops. Over here, I set a minimum spawn distance, so it spawns at least 2,000 units away, up to 7,000 units away, as well as a minimum and maximum altitude. Over here I said only 2 of these birds at once, stuff like that. But it still spawns anywhere, as long as it's within a certain radius of the player. Now, the actual unique part of this, let's go to forest birds. It has all of the same stuff that I mentioned, but also we're using color points where we assign a tag. I called this one zone.forest. And what we did, with the help of my engineer, all of these trees, it's hard to move around with a trackpad. But you can imagine all the trees in the area, they all also are assigned that tag, zone.forest. The way it works is, the Soundscape plugin will attempt to spawn a sound in a location within the radius. And if it is near one of these trees, like if it's near one of those zone.forest items, then it will actually spawn. And if it's not near it, it will not spawn. Compare it to this one. These are shoreline birds, and they will spawn. Give me a moment, I'm going to put down my mic so I can actually move around. So these actors, I placed a bunch of these, and I used those as the color points. So I assigned all of these as zone.shore, and whenever it tries to spawn a shoreline bird, like a seagull or a Canada goose, it's going to check to see if it's near one of these, and if it is, it'll spawn. Let me demonstrate it. You can already hear one of the seagulls. Oh, you can already hear one of the seagulls. I did put the radius too far, but in general, if you go into the forest, you'll notice that you're going to hear certain types of birds. Let's listen real quick. And these birds are accurate to the region, what you would actually hear in the forest, what you would actually hear at the shoreline. And if I make my way towards the shore, we will start hearing gulls, geese, all of that. They're just shy. It works. It works. I wasn't lying. With the last minute, I just wanted to talk about what I would do differently. This is the meta sound for the forest birds. There is too much going on. What I did was each one of these is a separate bird, right? Like that's, I think, a crow, that's something else, that's something else. What I did was I randomly picked one and then just do that. So I spawned this whole thing in a random location in the forest. Randomly pick one, it's going to go for the chickadee, for example, play that, and it actually loops for a certain amount of time. Like, let's say that the chickadee makes its call 6 times, and it has a certain pause in between each of its calls. And I actually wrote a patch over here which does all of that. But the issue with this is I'm spotting this just to play one bird, but all of these variables are still ticking, and it's not efficient. So what you should be doing if you do something like this, don't do one giant meta sound, do individual ones for each bird, and then in your palette you'll just have a bunch of colors. So instead of just having shoreline birds, you'll have every single bird as a separate soundscape color and as a separate meta sound. Yeah, that's my presentation. All right, questions? Yes.
Is there a way to like tag or group several of like a certain kind in the sound palette? So like you were talking about the shoreline birds, let's say you wanted all the birds to be separate in the sound palette, but you want all birds to be slightly quieter. Is there?
If you want all the birds to be slightly quieter, like you want just a separate control where the birds specifically are quieter but nothing else becomes quieter?
Yeah, essentially like that. Is there like a tag system? Does it work with the sound palette?
If you're trying to reduce the volume of like all of the birds specifically, I wouldn't use this plugin. There is a separate plugin that I also used. What was it called? Sound classes or modulation, I think. It's escaping me exactly how it worked. Oh yeah, it's basically, this is kind of, is this what I would use? Or maybe no. I would use this one. Sound classes. And this is not something I've looked into too much, but this is what I used where, for example, all the character foley, I can just reduce the volume through here. And so if you need to make separate sliders for like sound effects and music and whatever, you could use this. So you can have a separate slider just for birds. So you can, or not a slider if you just want to use that to adjust it for mastering purposes. Any other questions? In the back?
I'm just curious, what factors led to choosing these particular tools and plugins as opposed to other third-party solutions like Fmod or Wise or anything like that?
The question was why use these plugins as opposed to something like Fmod and Wise? Because this one is native to Unreal. No third-party stuff required. All of this is pretty native. Even the Soundscapes plugin is made by Epic. You just go into the settings and you enable it, basically. Most people, I think, still do add Ys. And one reason why I would still use Ys is for music. We didn't have to add music to this game, but it's still inefficient to try and implement dynamic music with meta sounds, especially because there's no visual way to control stuff. There's no sound wave to look at. There's no spectrogram. There's no nothing. You just have to tell it, hey, do this thing on beat 120, which is, it's fine. It works, but the workflow might be slower. So Wise is still a bit more, much more fleshed out, but meta sounds is definitely up there. It's pretty close, and they're still working on it. Anything else? Yes.
So for the example in the end where you're saying, okay, this is how I would actually do it with having separate birds, like how would you then go about randomizing which bird is selected?
I would still use this plugin over here, Soundscapes. And what I would do, inside of the color, first of all, here, let me go over here. You have maximum number of spawn elements, so if you want multiple crows to spawn at once, you can have 2 or 3, but if I just want one of that bird, put one over there. And then this is how long they wait until the next instance of that bird shows up. So if you don't want that bird to show up too frequently, you can have giant numbers for this. Like I think I think I had a bald eagle as one of the birds. And that one doesn't call as frequently as others. So I would put that to wait a minimum of 15-20 seconds before it calls again. That's pretty much it. Just playing with how many of them can spawn at once and how long to wait between the next one spawns. Anything else? Yes.
How did you source the audio for the authentic local species? Were you able to pull it from a library somewhere? Did you have somebody on site recording?
No, there was. I found various websites. I'll have to remember which ones they were. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, I just found them online and looked for recordings where they were pretty clean and you didn't hear that much other background stuff, and really spliced them up. And yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Because I can't go to Ontario and record them.
Yeah, I should imagine so.
Unless the company wanted to pay me for it.
Right.
Anything else? In the back.
This might be a real new question because it's music related, but you're moving between sound palettes as you're moving between areas. Would you use that same methodology to move between background music, or would you just use a different tool for that?
The question was if I would use soundscape palettes to change the music from one level to the music of another level. I think I would keep the music separate. I wouldn't mix the music into this ambiance system, just because I'd like to use this just for the ambiance. You probably could, but I think there would be limitations there. And I'd rather just control it separately, just straight up, if you're in this level, directly have it trigger the music that way. Probably have time for just one last one. Yes?
And I guess when it comes to like surround sound, or also I guess in the game, I guess you were talking about how as you get closer, the audio gets louder and you get farther away, and I assume you have certain volumes in the environment that allow you to determine the distance between where the sounds trigger. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, he was just asking about, now it's called attenuation, where depending on where the sound is spawned, you can adjust it so that you can say, well, the volume will keep fading out until you're so-and-so distance, and you can either be a linear decrease in volume, it can be logarithmic, whatever. And this plugin itself will randomly pick where the sound is, and the attenuation is like an actual item that you can make. There they are. I just say that, I don't know what this one is. This is for the leaves. Somewhere in here, yeah, these are the main things. And that's just reverb. Well, it's somewhere over there. You just say the max distance, what shape the volume starts dipping down. You assign it to a sound, and the engine will do all the calculating for you. Yeah. That's everything. You can always ask me questions afterwards, and I did make a video, a 3-minute video about this, talking about some other stuff as well. I posted about that on the server. But thank you all for listening.